In the late 19th century, a man known as Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, or more infamously as H. H. Holmes, would etch his name into the annals of American criminal history. His legacy is one drenched in terror, not just because of the lives he took, but because of the manner in which he did it. Holmes' infamy largely rests on the construction of his so-called murder castle, a hotel designed to aid in his ghastly killings. Though Holmes was convicted of only a handful of murders, it is believed he could have claimed the lives of many more, making him one of the most notorious figures in early American crime history. A charismatic deceiver born in 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire, Henry Howard Holmes was not always the villain he would become. He was the son of a poor family, and even as a young boy, he exhibited signs of a strange personality. By all accounts, Holmes was intelligent, charming, and ambitious, qualities that served him well in his adult life. He managed to graduate from the University of Michigan Medical School, despite an unclear academic record. It was at this point that the seeds of his criminal mind began to grow. During his medical training, Holmes showed a disturbing fascination with death, body dissection, and cadavers, traits that foreshadowed his future criminal endeavors. He even was suspected of being involved in several incidents where students' corpses went missing, though nothing concrete was ever proven. After earning his medical degree, Holmes moved to Chicago, where his criminal career would truly begin. The World's Fair and the Murder Castle in 1893, Chicago was abuzz with excitement, preparing for the World's Columbian Exposition, a grand World's Fair celebrating the 400th anniversary of Columbus's arrival in the New World. The fair was a monumental event, drawing millions of visitors from all over the world. But beneath this grandeur, Holmes saw an opportunity not only to make a fortune but to indulge his darkest desires. Holmes set up shop in the bustling city, where he quickly became a well-known and respected member of society. He opened a pharmacy and began working various business ventures, including a hotel near the fairgrounds. However, this was no ordinary hotel. In fact, the structure he built would later be known as the Murder Castle. Holmes had the castle specially designed to suit his devious needs. He hired a team of construction workers, many of whom mysteriously disappeared during the hotel's construction. Those who remained at the job claimed that Holmes often made odd requests, demanding that rooms and hallways be built in bizarre, convoluted patterns, doors that led to dead ends, stairways that led nowhere, and secret passageways hidden within walls. The building was a labyrinth, a perfect trap for anyone who would stay there. The so-called Murder Castle had soundproof rooms, gas lines running to various parts of the building, and trapdoors that led directly into the basement. Holmes had designed the hotel to be a perfect tool for his grisly work, a place where he could lure, trap, and kill unsuspecting victims. The women of the Murder Castle Holmes Hotel was a strange and eerie place, and one of its most disturbing aspects was how Holmes lured his victims. He preyed primarily on women, many of whom were drawn to Chicago by the excitement of the World's Fair. Some of these women were young, naive, and eager to start new lives, while others were simply in search of employment or adventure. Holmes was a master manipulator, and he knew exactly how to present himself to his victims. He would often charm women, promising them marriage and a bright future, only to later trap them in his twisted hotel. Holmes used his charm to convince these women to stay at his hotel, and once inside, he would begin his horrifying plans. Some were locked in soundproof rooms where they were suffocated to death. Others were strangled or poisoned. The most terrifying part, however, was how Holmes meticulously disfigured the bodies after death, cutting them open to remove organs and sell them for profit. It wasn't just women who were victimized, men, too, fell prey to his schemes. Holmes was a con man at his core, and many individuals who came into contact with him vanished without a trace. While many of his victims were never officially identified, the number of disappearances around the time of the World's Fair was staggering. The construction of evil as the years passed, Holmes' Murder Castle became a place of terror. The building contained more than 100 rooms, many of which were used for unspeakable acts. Holmes used the basement of the hotel for his most gruesome work. Here, he would dissect the bodies of his victims, removing organs for resale and sometimes using the bodies for other sinister purposes. Holmes was known to have conducted experiments on the bodies of his victims, cutting them open to examine organs or even using them to practice medical procedures. This sadistic experimentation, combined with his need for control, made Holmes even more dangerous. He took meticulous care in ensuring that no evidence of his crimes would ever be discovered, and he even hired private detectives to search for his victims when their disappearances were noticed. One of the most chilling features of the hotel was the torture chambers. These rooms were outfitted with all sorts of horrific devices, including gas chambers and stretching racks, designed to disfigure and torment his victims before their eventual deaths. For Holmes, the killing was not just about murder, it was about domination, control, and indulging his perverse fantasies. The investigation and capture Holmes' reign of terror could have gone on indefinitely, but in 1894, he was finally caught, though not for his murders. Instead, it was his involvement in a series of insurance scams that brought him to the attention of the authorities. Holmes had been swindling insurance companies out of large sums of money, and when a man named Benjamin Pitteasel became involved in one of these schemes, things began to unravel for Holmes. Pitteasel was a trusted accomplice who had been used by Holmes in his cons. However, after a botched attempt to fake Pitteasel's death, the authorities started to connect the dots between Holmes and several mysterious disappearances. It wasn't long before Holmes' past caught up with him. As investigators delved into his affairs, they began to discover the shocking truth about the murder castle. Holmes was arrested in 1894, and during his trial, investigators discovered the full extent of his horrors. His trial was a media sensation, with the public both horrified and fascinated by the details of his crimes. In 1895, Holmes was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. He was hanged on May 7, 1896. The legacy of H. Holmes. Though Holmes was convicted of only a few murders, many experts believe he could have killed hundreds of people. Some estimate that the true body count could be as high as 200. The murder castle was eventually torn down in 1938, though the legend of Holmes lived on. The building's demolition only added to the mystery surrounding the case, as rumors swirled about the hidden passages and rooms that may have concealed further evidence of Holmes' ghastly crimes. Today, Holmes remains a figure of fascination for true crime enthusiasts. His story has been the subject of countless books, documentaries, and films. He is often considered America's first known serial killer, though his crimes predate the popularization of the term serial killer. Holmes' methodical and calculated approach to murder set a chilling precedent for future criminals, making him a figure whose name will forever be associated with one of the most horrific chapters in American criminal history.